Good evening. Thank you for coming. I want to thank Shirley Williams for having me, inviting me, and getting me out here tonight. Real quick introduction. My name is Scott Hodges. My actual real name is Raymond Hodges, but I like Scott for that, so apologize for the odd first initial. I'm not trying to be shady. I am the president of South Suburban Business Advisors. It is a locally owned small business consulting company. I do management consulting, executive coaching, and peer advisory groups for small business owners. A little bit about my history. I graduated from IIT in 1986, so I am in fact older than I look. I graduated from the architecture school. So oddly enough, I don't practice architecture. I am a business person. But I came here on an ROTC scholarship, spent 10 years in the Air Force, decided that my Air Force career wasn't headed in the direction I wanted to go. And so I left the Air Force and went into commercial real estate. I spent 17 years in commercial real estate, the last 8 of which I was a consultant doing primarily portfolio management and planning, development advisory, and solution development around a variety of real estate and management issues, organizational design, and primarily for either large government organizations or large companies. A couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to leave corporate America, and I decided to start my own business. So what I wanted to talk about today was, based upon what Shirley asked me to do, was to talk about some lessons learned from starting businesses. The good news is these aren't my lessons learned. These are really lessons learned from other business owners. And I'll get into a little detail about how I'm going to go through that. But the points that I wanted to talk about: why entrepreneurs start businesses, what are some of the obstacles, and then, I have to speak into the mic? Okay. So apparently I've been told I have to speak into the mic. I apologize now, I'm going to be uncomfortable. Talk about some of the obstacles for entrepreneurs, and then success factors, and that's 2 areas that I'm going to focus on. Really discussing, how business owners think about focusing their resources, and then a brief discussion on some of the enablers to success factors. So before I get into this, how many people in here already own their own business? Okay. How long have you been in business? Year and a half. Everything going well? Okay. Everyone else thinking about starting businesses? Okay. So hopefully what I do here will be interesting to you. So why do entrepreneurs start businesses? I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. As a matter of fact, about a decade ago, I helped a family member start a business, and for about 2 years, we went through a variety of wailing and gnashing of teeth, and it ended up not working out, and it was something that I didn't necessarily like. Fast forward about 8 years, when I was deciding to leave corporate America, I had an opportunity to move into the public sector. I had a great opportunity to work with a large state government organization, and I chose instead to open my own business for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of reasons up here why people start businesses. They're color-coded. There's a reason why they're color-coded. The black ones, they're a little soft. Not many people are going to use those as primary reasons why they're going to start a business. The blue ones I'd sort of categorize more as, things that might be good for the soul, spiritual reasons that might guide you to making a decision to start a business. The green ones are important because we're gonna talk about those a little more later. Are really some of the key primary reasons why entrepreneurs decide to start businesses. The two that are in red, and this one here, which is red and green, a primary reason. The two that are in red are red because I consider those to be red flag reasons. If you think you're going to get job security from starting your own business, I'm not suggesting that you can't, but as a primary reason, I would caution you against that. I don't believe there is true job security as a primary reason in starting your business. It can be a good living, and this isn't in any way to discourage you from doing that. But in fact, many people who start businesses, in fact, most people who start businesses, at least at the beginning, experience a high degree of insecurity as a result of starting their business. It's normal. It's perfectly fine. But it takes a while to get to that job security point. Financial independence falls in the same category. For the gentleman who's already started his own business, unless you're really doing well right now, the financial independence question is also one that's a red flag. It may take a while to get there. Not everyone is Mark Zuckerberg and can come up with this great idea, get lucky, and then, a decade later, he's one of the wealthiest men in the world. That doesn't happen every day. And so I just wanted to highlight that. The one down here in purple, your reason. Everyone has a reason to start their business. And regardless of whether it's any one of these others up here, it may include some of those things, or it may be something completely different. But your reason is the most important reason. This is the most profound thing I will say tonight. The only reason your business exists is to help you achieve your personal vision. Whatever that personal vision is, the only reason you start a business is to help you achieve that. So, what are some of the obstacles that that business owners face? There actually are a lot of them. I group them into, there's a small group that I have. The first one being money. Depending on how you look at it, some people will say, I don't have enough money to start a business, and so I'm not going to start a business. Or they have enough money to start a business, and they end up spending that money on the wrong things. But regardless, financial constraints are an obstacle that most business owners are going to face. How you deal with that, it can be a variety of reasons. Finding an angel investor, sort of the holy grail of startups, finding an angel investor. I don't know how realistic that is for most people. In the work that I do, I don't advise people to find angel investors because to me, it's more like a unicorn than it is a real business strategy. That doesn't mean it's not a legitimate approach, but my work tends to be more grounded in reality. But regardless, however you deal with that, with the question of what kind of money you need to bring to the table, it has to be dealt with. It is an obstacle. Oftentimes, business owners will think, I have to do this, 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 and this, when in fact, probably the most important thing that you need to do when you start a business, whatever your product or service is, find your customer, earn them, and keep them. And if you focus your resources on that, then you might find that the money question is not as challenging as it is. And instead of going out and buying new furniture and a nice office and paying rent in a nice place and all of those other things that really give off a good appearance, but they haven't found you a single customer and they haven't helped you keep a single customer. So how you deal with the money question as an obstacle, we'll talk a little bit about that. Time. Does your business consume your life?
Oh, yeah.
Time is a legitimate constraint, and we all know that. It's the only thing that you have that you can't get more of, and once it's gone, you can't get it back. Everything else, in some way, you can at least try and get more of it, and you have the possibility of getting more of it, or you can replace it once it's used up. Time doesn't fit into that category, so it merits serious consideration. A lot of business owners are afraid of what the time question means for them. Do I have to give up time with my family? Most likely, yes. If you don't have a family yet, do you have to give up other things that you like to do? Taking, vacations to go hiking or whatever the case may be. Most likely, yes, at least temporarily. The time constraint can be something that prevents you from starting a business, or it can be something that you have to deal with as you start the business, understanding that you're going to have to put in time on something. And so it makes sense to figure out what the right things are to put that time into. Security. When you started your business, did you have a job already?
Yes, I still have a job.
You still have a job. So the security question is a little easier for you. A lot of people, when they start businesses, they sort of fall into two groups. One group that maybe, hasn't done a lot of work, doesn't have a career yet, is starting a business as a young entrepreneur. That's a great thing, and doesn't necessarily have a lot of concerns about security. They don't have, a spouse and children that they need to make sure have health care. They don't have those things to worry about. Other people like me, who came from a corporate environment where I had really good benefits. I went from a situation that was relatively secure to one that is highly unsecure. Now, I was fortunate. My wife had a good job, and we picked up her benefits, and so then I didn't have to worry about that. But there's not a lot of people who have that advantage. And so you have to deal with the question of security. And what that security question really is how am I taking care of myself and my family? Am I making enough money to live on, to make sure that I'm healthy, if I have a family, to make sure that they're taken care of? Very serious question. Support. Are you married?
No, but I've been with my girlfriend for over
10 years. Good for you, man. At some point, you're going to have to do something about that. In the interest of full disclosure, I've been with my wife for a long time. We've been married almost 30 years now. So you can do the math. I graduated a month later, I got married. So, so I've been at it for a while. The support of your family might be the single most beneficial thing that you can have. Without it, you may be in trouble. With it, it doesn't matter what happens. You are going to be fine. So think of it that way. Not having it is a serious consideration as you're going through figuring out whether or not you want to open a business. And then last, courage. Starting your own business takes courage. It's something that not a lot of people actually can be very successful at. There's a lot of people who can be moderately successful, and there are far more people who fail. It takes a lot of courage to make that decision to say, I am going to put my trust in myself and what I can do to be able to make a life for myself. And so it's one of those obstacles that's really hard to wrap your mind around. But fear can be a great it can be a great motivator for the negative. There are some people who might say that fear can be a great motivator to succeed. I don't choose to think of it that way. I would rather think of what are the possibilities. I talked earlier about a personal vision. If I know what that personal vision is, my motivation to get to that personal vision is because I need to succeed. I want to succeed. It's not that I'm afraid to fail. Some people may say that's semantics. I give fear as a negative force a little bit more credit than most people do. So I choose to encourage my clients and anybody that I talk to that if you're operating out of fear, you're coming from a negative place. Try and turn that around. So we've talked a little bit about why, we've talked a little bit about obstacles. If you have any questions while we're going through this, please feel free to ask me. I'm going to keep picking on you because you're the only one in here who has a business. But now I want to go into, I talked about success factors, and this is where it's going to get a little different. A year ago, I worked with an organization called TAB, the Alternative Board. And that's the part of my business where I do executive coaching and facilitate peer advisory boards. And so my parent company does this nice little thing. Nationally, we have thousands of businesses that we work with, different small business owners who have who are TAB facilitators, and they survey our business owners every quarter about a variety of topics. A year ago, they did a small business survey of 500. Well, they surveyed everybody. They got 544 responses, so it was a pretty good sample size. And it was focused on what I would do differently if I knew then what I know now. A little bit about the survey. Almost 70% of them have been in business for 10 years. So there's a lot of experience in this group of things that they've seen. Most of them are small businesses. Starting a business and thinking that you're going to go to an IPO in 2 years, that's the unicorn. Not saying it's not possible, but I tend to deal a little more in reality. This here, 63% of these business owners started their business from scratch. They didn't inherit it. They didn't buy it. They didn't, so it was the work of themselves. So there's a lot of knowledge and experience in this. These are the questions that were asked in this survey. And so what I'm going to do now is put this in context about what you might want to consider as you're thinking about starting your own business. And for you, what you might want to consider as you've now been a year and a half into it, what you might reconsider. Why? Where would you have spent more time, more money? What should you have done sooner? What would you have done more of? What would have benefited you most at the beginning? And then a very simple question, would you have spent more time or more money at the outset? So the motivations for launching your business, if you remember back to that first slide, all those 20 reasons or whatever, there were 6 of them that were in green. These are the reasons why they were in green. Those are those 6 reasons. By and large, far and away the winner, to be their own boss. That was me. One of my reasons. The way this question is asked, or the way all of these questions are asked, is what's the primary one? I mean, clearly you could have more than one of those reasons as something that motivates you to own a business, to start your own business. But what was the primary reason? Because all of these were factors for me. And if you know anything about commercial real estate and the environment that I came from, I was probably making a lot more money 2 years ago than I am now as owning my own business. That's true. It's not bad. It's just true. But I'm happier. So there's that. But primary motivation, wanted to be my own boss. For those of you who are thinking about starting your own businesses, if you haven't yet really gotten fully ingrained in your career, that may not be a consideration. But all of these things are important factors. Do you mind me asking what was your primary motivation for starting your business?
My business partner has been an entrepreneur all his life. He brought me out because we work really well together. So it wasn't really my idea. It was more of he wanted to do it. I trusted him. So we jumped in together and started a business.
Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about what you just said. Okay. What area would you have spent more time? How many people are surprised that strategic planning is the number one answer there? I will tell you there is nothing that I see more frequently than the lack of strategic planning. I work with dozens of business owners. I remember one woman that I worked with, she owns a niche retailer. She's a niche retailer, does a lot of sales online, she's a national distributor of a niche product. The very first time we talked about strategic planning, she said, "I hate strategic planning, and I will never do it." The first statement was true, the second statement wasn't. But it's not a very uncommon sentiment for small business owners to not want to plan. Bad idea. Sales, marketing, hiring and training employees. You know, these things, you know, down here, the reason I'm including hiring and training employees in this group of 4, you'll see in a second, is because they're all related in some way. But these 3 down here, you know, I mean, the reality is most business owners are really qualified to do the things necessary in these areas to support their business. The one real exception to that might be technology and innovation. But if you think about most of the companies that were on here, being construction companies, technology and innovation isn't necessarily a big deal for them. Professional services, it might be. Where would you have spent more money? The same top 4 reversed. Hiring and training now is where people said that they would spend more money. Now, I don't know what you do. What is your business, if you don't mind?
We're a digital marketing agency. So
Digital marketing. Yeah. Okay. So is that SEO stuff? Things like okay. And so how many people do you employ?
It's only 2 of us.
Only the 2 of you. Yeah. Okay. Any expansion plans in the future?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. How soon?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible. There's a reason why that's number 1. In this area, where would you have spent more money? Making sure that your team can actually do what you need done. And it doesn't mean just hiring good, smart people. It means making sure that they can actually do what you need to get done. Marketing, sales, strategic planning. And again, you know, not surprisingly, you know, I find this to be an anomaly, that most companies would say that, yeah, I don't really need to spend more in technology. My observation of the clients that I work with, that would be false. Most of them need to spend more on technology. I have another client who's working on a Windows 97 machine, and he just can't let it go. What area would you have benefited from most? Ooh. That top one there, 10% of the people said a better business partner. How do you feel about your business partner, if you don't mind my asking?
Oh, we're best friends.
There you go. See? So you're not one of the 10%. The results of this sort of warmed my heart because of what I do for a living. A better coach or mentor. If there's one thing that I would encourage everyone to do, whether you pay somebody or not, is to find a business coach or a mentor. And that's a hard thing because there's a lot of people who call themselves coaches who are not good at what they do. So there's a lot of risk associated with it. I've gone to meetings with prospects, and when they find out that one of the primary services that I provide is coaching, the meeting turns into something adversarial. There are a lot of really questionable coaches out there. But if you find a good one, they are worth more than you can possibly imagine.
I agree with that completely. I wish I had had a mentor when we did, but I had a mentor from November, December, and January this month, and I love it. And I wish I had it when we did.
Yeah. No, that's thanks for that observation. Better employees coming in here at the third highest ranking thing there. Better employees. There's a theme around that. It's not just about having a great product or service. It's about surrounding yourself with good people to make sure that your business can succeed. What do you wish you had done earlier? So this gets back to this number one here, generate more leads, gets back to, one of the first things we talked about. Where do you spend your money? When you think about it, money's a constraint when you're starting a business. Where do you spend your money? And I think I may have said it then. It's more important to focus your resources on finding your customers, earning them, and keeping them than anything else. Is product development on here? It's not. There's a reason why product development isn't on here. Because if it works already, it's good enough. That doesn't mean you shouldn't make it better. Guy I work with builds aftermarket parts for recreational vehicles, basically awnings. Some of them are fairly technical, some of them are very straightforward. The ones that are fairly technical, he spends a lot of time trying to improve them. More time than he actually should. There's a reason why product development isn't on this list. Generate more leads. The second highest ranking one, form a network of experts for advice. That can take a variety of forms. We can talk about that. One of the most common forms, industry groups. They're very useful for a variety of things. Getting a customer database directly related to generating more leads. And then these, others here at the bottom. But generating leads and getting advice. There's a theme developing here. If you could have done one thing more often, what would it be? It is no accident that Delegate and Relax are far and away the top two things. One of the things that business owners make the mistake of is thinking they have to do all of the work. This gets back to having the right people who know how to do the work that you need done. This gets back to, being a control freak or something along those lines. I work with several of them. Being able to delegate things that should be delegated. One of the hardest things for new business owners to do. You've put your heart and soul into this thing, and you know how to make it work, and you don't trust anybody else to do it. 544 business owners, thousands of years cumulatively of business experience. Don't do it. And relax. I tend to think that that's the most important takeaway from that is business owners are always doing something. Whether they should be doing it or not, they are always doing something. Don't waste your time on stuff that isn't helping you get to where you're going. I'll tie this directly to some of the work that I do. I talked earlier about the personal vision. One of the things that's important about the personal vision is when you establish your personal vision, you say, today, and however long that looks into the future, these are the 3 or 4 or 5 things that are most important to me. This is my idea of what success looks like today. And then the question you ask yourself whenever you have a decision to make, is this getting me to one of those things on that list? And if it's not, you probably shouldn't be doing it. It's really that simple. And it's a really hard thing to do. Because there's a lot of good ideas out there. This might be great. This might be good. Let's think about this. If it isn't getting you to your personal vision, don't do it. Your personal vision isn't static. It might change every 6 months, 12 months, every couple of years. It's not something that never changes. But as you reevaluate that and you reestablish that, what that personal vision looks like, the question is always the same. Is this helping me get to something in my personal vision? So, taking risks, asking for help. A lot of business owners, new business owners, don't want to appear weak, don't want to appear afraid, don't want to appear unknowledgeable. They have a lot of hang-ups about that. The only thing that I can say about that is don't be afraid. Ask for help. There are hundreds of people out there who will be more than happy to help you with advice. As a matter of fact, they probably like you a lot more because you asked them for advice. But be careful about that. You got to build the right network. You can't just take anybody. So, the last question on the survey. Would you have spent more time or invested more time or more money? It actually surprises me that time was 40%. I don't know a lot of business owners who don't pour just about every ounce of energy and time that they have into their business. So that kind of surprises me a little bit. But again, it's not my opinion, it's everyone else's. But it isn't surprising that money was higher than time. So are there any questions about the outcomes of that survey? The reason I went through that was because those are in fact the real lessons that people have learned from starting businesses. What is important to consider as you're thinking about it? That's the guy who said, if I could go back to when I started this business, man, would I do that differently. That's why that was important. Yes, sir. It is not likely. The question was, were any of them nonprofit businesses? It's not likely. Because this was a TAB Pulse survey, most of the businesses, well over 95%, that TAB works with are for-profit businesses. So it's unlikely that a significant number of them were nonprofit. Without question. Absolutely. I've worked with a couple of nonprofits, not more as a pro bono consultant, and you have to think differently. I mean, the business practices may be the same, but the motivators are different. The way you approach those things are, for example, your sources of revenue are going to be uniquely different. It is a much different perspective. Yeah. So any other questions about that? Okay. So, how do we get past some of that stuff? You know, I will always start with the top one there. Know what you really want. Or know what you want. Really, know what you want. If you want to go to an IPO in 2 years, I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's something completely different. You know, for every Jeff Bezos who's out there, there's 1 million people who had similarly good ideas who are out there and did not succeed at whatever they were trying. That's the unicorn. That's, you know, I'm not saying it's impossible. I mean, I guess I am if I'm calling it a unicorn. It's sort of a unicorn. It's the white whale. There's a better one. There was only one of those. There's a lot of randomness and luck involved in that kind of success. Most small business owners are successful through planning, hard work, putting effort into doing things in a structured way that mitigates their risk and leads them to success. So know what you want really, because then you have to develop an effective and flexible strategic plan. There are a lot of different approaches out there. Strategic planning for corporate America is not what small business owners do. Strategic planning for small business owners is not hard. It's the same in its concept as what you might find in corporate America. But that top bullet there is what makes it different. The strategic plan for a small business should be specifically focused on helping the owner succeed. End of story. That's fundamentally aligning your plan to what you really want. Build a team you can trust. This gets back to that, that whole idea of having the right people, doing things the right way, trusting them, making sure they're properly trained, and trusting them that they are going to do things in the right way for you. I just finished coaching a guy through about a year of letting go of administrative tasks. He just couldn't do it. He had an office manager who did nothing for him. That's not true anymore. She might be mad at me about that, but it's the way it should be. Build a team that you can trust. Your internal team, that's really about leadership. And I could spend a lot of time talking about leadership, favorite topic of mine. Hiring, communicating, the developing, the training. More people said I would spend more money on training, hiring and training than anything else. There's a tie-in there. There's a reason why it's important. And rewarding those people. Sometimes that's in the form of compensation, sometimes it's not. But at the end of the day, building that internal team in the right way and focusing on the right things is going to enable your success. An external team, advisors, a good accountant, a good lawyer if you think you need a good lawyer, a good IP lawyer. That's a big issue today with as fast as technology is moving. And, I think I invented rain sensing windshield wipers, but I didn't. It was my idea, but somebody else had that same idea. Shocking, isn't it? But having those external advisors, professional services advisors, that's important. My accountant is great, and actually could pass for a lawyer, but that would be illegal. Build and use an advisor network. And this gets to what we said about having a mentor. Having a mentor as part of your advisor network. A group of people. As I said, one of the things that I do is I facilitate peer advisory boards. If you've ever participated in something like Rotary, or you know what Rotary is, or if you've ever been to a chamber business group, a lot of people think that a peer advisory board is the same thing, and it's not. Typically, if you're in an industry group or something, somewhere else where you're likely to deal with competitors, those people are not focused on your success. They're focused on learning from you so that they can be more successful. A peer advisory board is actually a group of advisors who are focused on your success. You shouldn't have a peer advisory board that has a competitor on it. So that's one of the critical differences. And as you work with a peer advisory board and they get to know you and they get to know your business, they start to hold you accountable for the decisions that you make. Find yourself a good network. Again, whether you pay for it or whether you don't, find it. A lot of people use spouses and friends. I am not going to knock spouses and friends. My spouse is a wonderfully smart woman, and she knows a lot about what I do. Not everyone fits into that category. And it's always a good thing to be cautious because your spouse is not unemotionally attached to it. Friends the same way. They're not unemotionally attached to it. So find yourself a network of business owners who aren't emotionally attached to your business, who can look at it objectively and who can say, hey, you're making a mistake by doing this. Or, I did that, here's what I think you should know about what you're going to have to deal with. Advisor networks are excellent. Learn. Read every day. Yes, ma'am. But that's what I do as part of my business. So I'm not suggesting that everyone has to find a coach or a mentor or an advisory board that they have to pay for. In some cases, that's not necessarily practical. There are people who do that professionally. I have no idea. But the important thing is to find a network of people that you genuinely trust to not BS. However, now from experience of having a good mentor and a coach, how good that actually can be.
Yes.
And again, I'm not suggesting that it's something that everyone has to pay for. You might have, a friend who's just really smart and really good at this stuff, and isn't going to do this. And if you can trust them. But understand, when you work with someone in a professional capacity like that, to put it as bluntly as I can, sometimes you will have to bear your soul. So it has to be someone who can look at you objectively and say, I think you're doing this the wrong way, or I hear what you're saying, I would try this first, or whatever it is. They have to be in a position to be honest enough to you to say, don't make that mistake, or I think you're not going far enough, or whatever it is. So, does that help clarify for you?
It does. I'm just asking the question because you said you should not have a person that's your that's part of that group.
Well, industry groups are used for some things. So, for example, I work with a guy who owns a auto repair business. He's part of an industry that, they talk about, things developing technology and stuff about how they do their business. But if you were going to ask, hey, I want to expand into 3D market space, and he's sitting with a bunch of disadvantages, how's that going to go? And so the motivation to get really good advice starts to diminish as you start to get into things that impact your lives. So I'm not suggesting that you should eliminate industry groups or groups where you might find members because they can be useful for some things. But if you don't have somebody who can be completely objective about what you do, you need to find that. It's worth its weight in gold. So does that help? Okay. Okay. Real quick. Ooh, I'm doing good on time. Real quick, what we covered. Really understand what it is, what your motivation is for going into starting that business. And there's nothing wrong with talking that through with me. That's something that certainly you could talk through with a spouse or friends or whatever. I mean, that's not bad. Ultimately, it's your decision to figure that out. But really understand why you want to own a business. Build your awareness about the obstacles. I mean, I talked about 5. I consider them to be the 5 most important. There are others that you could consider, but understand what those mean to you and how you feel about them before you make a decision to go into a business. And then when you do make that decision, make sure that you've accounted for them. Plan. Don't do too much. But I can't emphasize that enough. There's a gentleman I work with who's not done it. When I started working with him, not done the concept planning in his life, and he was running a successful business. A very successful business. That had started to see a decline in the past 3 years. In 2 months, we had turned his revenue around, increased it. His monthly revenue increased by 10% in 2 months. Now, that's the exception. It's not the rule. This wasn't low-hanging fruit. This was fruit that had fallen off and was still ripe on the ground, and all he had to do was pick it up. I mean, that's how close he was to it, and he just couldn't see it. But once he started planning, he realized how much he had been missing out on because he just didn't believe in planning. It doesn't work for you. Don't let that happen. Plan. Ask for help. Always ask for help. And don't be afraid. That's all I got. Any questions? My contact information is up here. If you'd like a copy of the presentation, if you'd like me to send you a copy of that report, the survey that I used as the basis for this information, let me know. I can email that out to you. But certainly I appreciate you coming out on this cold night. I wasn't happy about it, in all honesty. So I'm going to have to reconsider whether or not I want to do an evening event in January again. But being from the Chicago area, I should have known what to expect. So, but happy to send this out to you if you want. Happy to talk to you about anything that you may be interested in. Certainly, yes, sir.
larger universe of the fundamental, if you see a lot of film,
Yeah.
just an observation.
There certainly are some reasons for that, given on where you are. So, for example, here in Illinois, one of the struggles that business owners are dealing with is a very, very tough tax system. Whether it's property taxes if you own something, or corporate taxes, it's a very, very tough tax environment for business owners. It particularly hits small business owners very hard. I'm not going to suggest that that's the only reason why businesses fail, but it is one, and it is a barrier to starting a business here in Illinois. I have a guy that I worked with for about 6 months, and he couldn't wait to move to Indiana. It was his dream. But it was only his dream because just in property taxes, his property tax bill was going to be 22% of what it was in Cook County. So, certainly, depending on what your industry is, like I said, there's the guy who makes the aftermarket RV parts. You might think that that's a discretionary purchase. It in fact isn't. The dynamic of that purchase is people who actually are into RVing, they have to have awnings because they spend time outside in warm places. It's a requirement. If you find an RV that doesn't have an awning, it's not being used. So he's in a business that's not actually a discretionary purchase, but yet his business is impacted by the economy because instead of replacing their awning with a high-end one, they're going to buy the mid-range or the low-end model. And so he sees, an impact in sales from that. Now, he's not in danger of going out of business, but his revenue is down from 2008, 25%. And it's because people are now just buying the cheaper versions of what he does. So there's a lot of factors, that go into the business failures. It's I wouldn't say that it's necessarily difficult to predict, but it's certainly something that you can account for and plan. I mean, part of a good strategic plan is accounting for those types of risks. What happens if the market tanks and nobody wants to buy what I'm selling now? So, I'm sorry?
It's discouraging when you hear that about Illinois.
I agree with you, but it's a reality that I deal with my clients every day, and there's no way around that until the state gets its act together, and part of that might be the voters getting their act together. You keep sending the same knuckleheads back to Springfield, and you're going to get the same knucklehead behavior. But you're going to get me off on a topic that's going to get me excited, so don't do that. But
Try to stick by it.
but it is. Illinois is a particularly challenging environment for a small business startup. It's not impossible. You can account for all of the things that are likely to happen to you, but it is a challenging environment. What else? Anything else? Yes, sir.
I spent a lot of 2015 learning a lot, watching videos, being a mentor. And I felt like I went really, really hard. Now that we're here in 2016, I start fresh. I start steep. Give advice on how to stay motivated along those lines.
Well, I'm assuming that you guys have a plan. I think one of the mistakes that small business owners make with planning is that they try and do too much with it. One of the methodologies that I use and that I frequently encourage business owners to use is if you have more than two major things, they're trying to do too much. I would prefer that it be one, but it's not about me, it's about them. So, but if they told me they have these four major things and they're all important, we've got to figure out how to do four major things, but I will tell them it's too much. And so, and the reason that's important, particularly in the question that you asked, is when you're focused more narrowly on the most important thing to you, you are going to have milestones and success measures that are 30, 60, 90 days out. And the surest way of maintaining momentum is to achieve success. And so as you start to hit those milestones in that much shorter period of time, it starts to build confidence and it feeds on itself. So I don't know that you're doing too much or that you have too much in your plan, but oftentimes when you do have too much in your plan, nothing is getting done well. And so that's something that immediately jumps to mind when I hear that question. It could be a number of things. An unresponsive customer base. We all have those. And the challenging thing about what you do is that there are a lot of competitors in the marketplace. And so part of what you have to figure out is how to get into it. I guess in some ways you probably do you consider your market a mature market now? Do you consider it a mature market now?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so if you consider the life cycle of a product or service, is it in the growth stage? It's not in the entry stage. That's the only that you're still in IT market has been around for a long time. But is it still in a rapidly growing stage, or is it a more stable stage? Thank you for coming, by the way. I hope this was useful for you. So if it's in that stable area, it's a mature market. So I don't know. I specifically don't know about what you do enough to be able to say whether it's still a growing market or a mature market. So you'd say it's still growing? Okay. Well, certainly if it's still growing, there's a lot of opportunity. So, but again, not knowing, what type of marketing you're doing and what kind of brand awareness you're doing and things like that, I don't know what specifically to say. Okay.
It makes sense. Focusing on one thing.
Well, not necessarily just one, but one or two. There might be two really important things that are better. Thank you for coming. Anything else? Shirley?
What's the biggest mistake people make when funding a new business?
Spending money on the wrong thing. Without question.
Such as?
Initially, any major expense that is not getting you customers. So, my accountant, who I have a really good relationship with, told me about a client who I don't know, and I don't know who the client is. I just know that this client exists. They're trying to secure about $1.3 million in funding to grow this business to its next level. And so she did the financial statements for the money that they were going to get. And the lender, very pleased with the package that was put together, said yes, there shouldn't be any problem getting this money. And my accountant is in a partnership with a business consultant, so they work together on this. And one of the three owners had been talking to her about the car he was going to buy through the business once the loan came through. Now, that may be an extreme example, but it is a very common example of mistakes that small business owners make. Spending money on something that isn't helping you build your customer base at the onset is a mistake. And it's the one that almost all business owners do, myself included. Been there, done that. Now, I didn't buy a new car, but it took me a couple of months to figure out that I was spending something on a marketing piece that I was going to use 5 times a year. And I spent hundreds of dollars on it. For a marketing piece, I got a lot of them. And they're sitting there, they're pretty. They look great. And they're just sitting there looking pretty. So that's a more common mistake that, that people make. I mean, there's no question that, I mean, in all honesty, I could have my printer print one of those things at $10 a shot, and I'd be, hundreds of dollars ahead right now. That's so it can be a number of things, but spending money on stuff that is not building that customer base. Initially, that's the biggest mistake business owners make. So, anything else? Appreciate you being here. Thank you.